Because of the design of the clinical trials, often you're looking at a very homogeneous population to strengthen the intrinsic validity of that clinical trial. The challenge you run into is that through the clinical trial process, and while you do begin to mount up evidence on different populations as you conduct more and more clinical trials, it's impossible because of the expense and the time it takes to conduct those trials to really have enough evidence to cover all of those individuals who wind up being exposed to the product once the product comes to market. And so that utilization of the product grows faster than our evidence around that comes from clinical trials around how well the products work or how safe they are. So we know that the age, race, ethnicity, comorbid conditions, concomitant drugs have a profound impact on outcomes, and it's very difficult to study that. So when the product comes into the marketplace, that's where comparative effectiveness becomes a very important component, so that as those individuals are exposed, a broader population is exposed to the products, then we can then gather that information and provide that information back in a rational and in a sound format back to those decision makers. From the payer's perspective, the payer has a very specific population that it provides health benefits for. And so one population from one payer may be very different than a population that was studied in a clinical trial. So often what we need to understand is what's different between their population and those that may have been exposed to a product during clinical trial process, and then try to close the gap where the evidence may be. So for them to provide the best benefit designs, as an example, or decisions around formulary status and educational programs, those things are, in order to do that, you really need to understand better how the product's likely to behave in your population and adjust your benefits to the maximum benefit of the patient. I think CER is used in managed care to a varying degree. Some organizations do use it much more so than other organizations. And I think today, if you really look at what part of each organization that probably uses comparative effectiveness more than others, is really the medical policy and in the pharmacy policy arenas, where the types of evidence that's being generated is often most applicable. Some of the biggest barriers to achieving higher quality and more affordable health care is often the inability to get research into the hands of the decision makers quickly enough. The cycle time from bench to bedside in order for that information to be adequately taken up in the population is very long. And there's good reasons for that. There's a tremendous amount of new literature that comes out every year, and the way that we're structured as a healthcare system today, it's very difficult to find a new piece of information and put that into the hands of a physician or a member at the time period they need to make those decisions. So it's very tough, and I think it's going to increasingly get more difficult over time, which is why providing decision support services and capabilities is critical to achieving those outcomes.